People of the world, welcome back to Send It Rising. Did you know we recently hit 500 episodes on YouTube? It's very exciting. For those of you listening on iTunes and Spotify after the fact, you're in for the treat of all treats today because our guest today is a friend of mine who I've known now for quite a few years. She's a philanthropist, she's an author. She has taken the world by storm now has a second book, which is a compliment to her first book, Unwanted, which was very good. I have a signed copy. Thank you very much. If I want to remember, or if I do remember correctly, I think she raised $500 million for Opportunity Village, but she'll correct me if I'm wrong about that one. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest on the show, the Las Vegas Maverick herself, Linda Smith.
Hi. Hi, Kellen.
Yay. So just a quick recap for the listeners that don't know much about Joe. We've got folks all over the nation tuning in. And so I'm just curious, in like a bite-sized paragraph, tell them about yourself.
Tell you what?
Yeah, give me the paragraph, Linda Smith, right now.
Okay. Former dancer, model, actress 100 years ago in Canada, married to an entertainer who lived in Las Vegas, moved to Las Vegas. Then I got pregnant, and 3 years into our marriage, flew to Toronto to have my son. He was born almost on the airplane. I went into labor on the airplane, landed in Canada. My son was born with Down syndrome, and that changed my entire life and everything. I had to become an advocate and an activist in the end for people with disabilities. Once I found out all of the discrimination that existed around people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. For example, I could not get Christopher into the country. So our home was in Canada, our home was in Las Vegas, he was born in Canada, and there were discriminatory laws that said people exempt from entering the United States as permanent residents were number one, criminals, number two, were retarded people. And so that took me on an 18-year journey to get him legal, which is in my book, my first book. And actually, it's recapped in my second book, Confessions of a Sin City Fundraiser.
Yes. And so for those of you listening, to be able to create two sort of narratives from your own life, that will give you a sense of just how robust Linda's life has been. Unwanted is an incredible book. Linda went on to found the Christopher Smith Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my Christopher carved out a life for me. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be on your show, Kellen. I'd just be an old dancer. Who wants to talk to an old dancer? Um, I became this fundraiser, and it's a pretty significant fundraiser. I mean, I learned seat of the pants here in Las Vegas, and built an organization, built 4 campuses and an amazing organization that became a model around the world for how to serve and treat people with intellectual disabilities. And so, every road kind of leads back to my Christopher. And when I was losing Christopher, he became ill, and people with Down syndrome, they just don't get any breaks. There's so many other things that can go wrong when you have developmental disabilities, and particularly people with Down syndrome have a propensity to have so many things that can go wrong. So as he was critically ill in hospital, my son and I, as we were sitting around the bedside, said, this little guy's changed the world for people with disabilities. He certainly changed our life better. And that we need a legacy for Christopher. And so we formed the Christopher Smith Foundation. And largely the mission was, as we watched the care that he got in the hospital, and that we had to fight for that care because he was marginalized because of his disability, and realizing that a person profoundly ill, you have to have an advocate with you. And that's across all, for all of us. If any of us get ill, you need somebody right there fighting for you, and certainly someone that doesn't have a voice. And so we admired and appreciated all the caregivers that we had met in our lives, And so the Christopher Smith Foundation is a charity that rewards and says thank you to caregivers. And then I was launching my first book at the same time. So we made the decision that 100% of all proceeds for both books, it turns out, because I never imagined I would write a second one after how difficult it was to write the first one. So 100% of the proceeds from the book sales go to the Christopher Smith Foundation. And we are now engaged in saying thank you to caregivers in Christopher's name.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And as someone who's written a book as well, the thought of writing another one makes me want to just go to sleep. It makes me want to nap and then wake up and have a pizza and then take another nap because it is so much work. So, how did you find it in you to write yet another tale?
You know, I really don't know. I was talking to my husband about that just yesterday. Like, what is that in me that, you know, I think the first story left a lot of questions because it was more about how I came to be a fundraiser, and and it did really really well, and a lot of people asked me, so then what happened? You did this, and it sort of left off like after 25 years of fundraising, which seems like a long time. But then I had stories, so many stories to tell that happened once I became a fundraiser. And how did you raise $500 million? Because the first book didn't talk about how, you know. And so the second book is really lessons. And a lot of them, I call it confessions of a Sin City fundraiser, because there were stories that I couldn't really tell when I was working for this sort of institution. There's stories of celebrities that you would be surprised to hear that I worked with and met. Some I call one chapter "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly," because it's not it's not a cakewalk raising money and creating events. So the second book, Confessions of a Sin City Fundraiser, is more of a sequel to the first. And I don't know, Kellen, how I did it. I just felt like there was this thing hanging over my head, that Chris's story and him making his mom a fundraiser and a disability advocate, and it just had to be told. Plus, I had become a consultant, a fundraising consultant, and I was getting all of these questions constantly. So there it is in the book. The
Mm.
answers and the stories are there.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things I recall from our relationship is you were giving a speech at the United Way of Southern Nevada, and I want to say you told a story, correct me if I get any of the details wrong, where you were opposite some person in a room and you were thinking about the quantity of money you wanted to ask for. And I don't know if you doubled it or if you went with like your original amount or it was like way higher than you were comfortable with. And then he just did it and it was fine.
Yeah, that quick story is a true story. It's a lesson, not just for fundraisers, but for all of us, in that it's really important to be in the moment, always be in the moment, and open your mind to every possibility. And in that moment, I was asking a major donor, philanthropist, for $25 million for a project. And it was the biggest ask at that time that I had ever made from any one single source. And the need was great. And and I'm a storyteller, as you can tell as I'm rambling on here. Cut me off if I'm running out of time. But in that moment, and we had practiced, by the way, there was a group of us in the room. One was a board member to talk about why he was involved in the charity. The CEO of the organization was to talk about the programs, and it was my job to make the ask, and we had practiced that. And I was making the ask by telling a story that was unknown to everyone in the room, but I just got caught up in it, about a father who had died of a broken heart because the solution had not been solved for his daughter's residential. What would happen to her after he died? And I got choked up when I was telling that story because it was a true story. And as I've been looking at the potential funders, I saw tears in the eyes of the most important person in the room, which was the one that would say yes or no. And I was embarrassed at myself for getting emotional, but then I looked at that person and I saw that I had moved her to tears. And so I took my $25 million ask and took it up by 10 million. And so
Mm.
asked for 35 million.
Mhm.
And I remember, because we have practice, when I make the ask, no one should say anything. Everybody should just be quiet.
Yeah.
And people started sputtering because they thought I'd said the wrong number. And I had
Mm.
to reel it in and keep that mood and that emotion.
Mm.
And in the end, we got the 35 million.
Ooh. It's so interesting to me, how numbers are objective. There's this idea that they're very sort of static and, scientific. Um, they are pure emotion and thought. We pour so much of ourselves into these numbers.
Uh, Absolutely. And, as a fundraiser, it's really important to know when you go in what the market will bear as much as you can. But that's very hard when you're talking to a foundation that has a lot of money, and but they have a lot of people that they need to give their money to, and so very very care very uh, you do your homework anyway, and you get in and you try. I just had a sense that I was leaving money on the table at 25 million after my story and the impact.
Oh man, I just it's a fascinating. This entire experience, this entire um, being a human is such a wild ride. It's such a wild ride, and I'm so happy for you because to do what you did with Unwanted is obviously very cool. But then to circle back, and it's not a business book. I don't think fundraising is that you wouldn't put it. It's definitely still like a nonprofit land. But for the marketers, for the salespeople, for the entrepreneurs out there, same thing, right? Like even that I know like I shouldn't say that because all of my like charity people are like, well, yeah, there's similarities, but there's nuances. But when it comes to selling someone, if you tell a story, you can move someone to tears, you can make them laugh, you can make them cry. That affects the number in their head and what they're willing to do, and because it affects the perceived value. The other thing too is sometimes, and I'm sure you have a story about this, but if you go under, they don't take you seriously.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I've got a similar story, where well, they took me serious, but I just asked too low and I got it too quickly. To me, a quick yes is not a win. It's,
Mhm.
I like the kind of no's. I like to me, a no is just the beginning of a negotiation. A quick yes is shoot. I left too much money. I didn't ask for the right amount, and you know. So yes,
Right.
fundraising is it's an art and it's a science, both, and in all works of life. And I think taking people on an emotional roller coaster in any, to move people, you'll have great results if you can move people and bring them in. And, you know, developing relationships is everything. And it's sort of the mantra for how to fundraise, but in so many walks of life, it's like developing and nurturing those relationships.
Yes. So I do want your opinion on this. The pandemic hits, and a lot of folks my age are in Zoom rooms all the time. Everyone has Zoom fatigue. A lot of these major corporations, they'll just go from meeting to meeting to me all day, every day. And then half the people in the meeting don't have their camera turned on. Everyone's half paying attention. And it just feels like the in-person relationship building died a couple of years ago, just totally died. So what would your advice be to folks living in this sort of post-pandemic climate where a lot of the in-person stuff went away, and some people are getting back to it, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's a hard one, but I think human connection is the answer to everything, and those hugs, and I think people really want to have that one-to-one connection. It's just they've sort of lost that. The way that we do business, I think we eventually, I believe, it'll come back because it has to come back. Yeah, it's very convenient, but in those really important decisions and conversations, I think have to happen in person and sitting down face to face. And maybe, maybe now it's in face to face in someone's home and not so much in their office. But I can see, I can see what's happening in a lot of organizations right now, charitable organizations, in that they're doing business like this behind a computer, and they're not as successful. It's face to face connections. We need them, and we have to figure out a way to get back to them. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult because, as you said, people have gotten used to this. I think these big meetings, you really, really miss out, as you said, because people are distracted. And I'm talking to you, and I can look out my window and see the neighbors going by, and then I forget the thread. That's not good. And so, um, much like fundraising, when we cast a wide net and we go out and we ask for things, you might get a few fish in your, but it's those getting out there one on one. And so we have to pay attention to those individuals and talk to them. People are forgetting how to have a conversation on the phone. Everything's text or email or Facebook, or we're just not picking up the phone and saying, "How are you? I miss your face. Can we meet?"
I miss your face. I love that. Yeah, so it's like in my experience, at least as a digital marketing agency owner, it's depth of relationship over a number of relationships. It's
Yeah.
so rare that someone I don't know who they are refers me. Of course I know who they are. And we've seen each other multiple times. So those are the relationships that bear fruit. And of course, it's more challenging. It's more difficult to actually create those relationships to keep them alive over time. But yeah, it's like anything, it's harder, but it also works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strange new world for us old girls to figure out.
So okay, so I feel like have you done sales training in the past? Have you ever gone into organizations and done like a sales training to a sales force?
No, everything that I learned seat of the pants, and maybe, I talk about my background growing up. I was born in England and into an abusive family, and learning to escape my father. I think I got those sort of that street sense, that street training. Um, and, after the fact, I became this very important leader of an organization, and probably I did go to some training sessions, but it's always been I've always been a fighter, and, um, learned from any mistake I made. And,
Yeah,
uh,
let me rephrase it. I'm envisioning you teaching salespeople.
oh, 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 oh,
You
uh,
see what I'm saying? Because like all this fundraising that you did, these stories that you can tell, like that's like for example, here's a good example. So Russell Wilson, who's the famous Seattle quarterback, gives
uh-huh,
speeches at places like Salesforce.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
okay.
On motivation, and he never sold anything in his life.
Well, yeah, so specifically, no, not like sales team, but yes, you're absolutely right. And one somewhat recent, I got a phone call from the guy that put telehealth on the moon, contacted me and wanted me to speak in Silicon Valley to a bunch of angel investors and telehealth specialists. And I'm going, no, this is Linda Smith, mom of a disabled child. He said, "Hey, you raised $500 million, right? Just come and tell us how you did that. And I remember going to that conference and I was the last speaker of the day and wanting to run because I didn't understand 99% of what they were talking. They were talking way over my head about telehealth and all, all of this stuff. And I'm going, oh my God, what on earth can I tell these people? And I got up and told my story, and people in the room sobbed. I got a standing ovation, the only one of the day, and people came up to me after and said, thank you for bringing the humanity into our business. We needed that human touch. And so, yeah, I think, Helen, I could pretty well, after that, I think my story can help a lot of businesses.
That's exactly where my head was at, because I was thinking to myself, because obviously I didn't know that you had done that. I was thinking that had that not occurred, I wished that it would have. But since it already has, it's just a reminder that those opportunities are, because imagine you're a corporate, you're a senior manager in a corporation, right? And of course, the ins and outs of your industry. Ugh, boring all the time, constantly, same stuff. It's these kinds of stories, your kinds of stories, that really, as you mentioned in the story you just talked about, this the humanity, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, as human beings, we get tired, we get cranky, we've got problem after problem. It's sometimes we need that inspiration to frame what we're doing in a different way. And so if anyone's out there and you have an organization or a business, or of someone who does, Linda is a great speaker. And I feel like that is the maximum impact you can have in terms of your legacy right now, is getting on stage, having recorded moments like that. Did they film it?
Yeah.
Nice. So you got a copy of it?
No.
Gotta get that copy, Linda. That's gotta be on your YouTube channel, Elizabeth. What the heck? So this is a show about marketing and entrepreneurship and business and that sort of stuff. So I do want to take a moment to ask you if you're on TikTok or if you're doing Instagram Reels yet.
I don't know what an Instagram reel is, but I'm on Instagram and I have no idea. I don't know. Somebody told me I should get on TikTok or get TikTok, and I don't quite know what it is.
I'm the second person now publicly telling you that you need to do this. Okay, so quick education for those of you that don't know, including Linda on the call. There are Instagram Reels, TikTok, something called YouTube Shorts, and now Facebook just came up with one called Facebook Reels, and they are all the exact same thing. There's no difference between all four of them, right? They're all competing for this space. What is this space? It's quick videos, right? 60 seconds, usually, or less, sometimes 3 minutes. And basically, people click on this little button on Instagram, they see a video, they like it or they don't. That's it. And then they take their thumb and they push it up, and the next video appears. And they look at it and they like it or they don't. And then they thumb up. They can like it, they can leave a comment, or they don't. And why it's so amazing is because the algorithms are so strong. It instantly knows what you like. So if you sit there and watch a stand-up video one, it now knows that you're into stand-up comedy. And people who like stand-up comedy tend to also like these videos. And people who like those videos tend to like these videos. And so before you know it, just following your sort of what you like, what you don't like, it feeds you the greatest videos you've ever seen over and over and over and over again. And it's so entertaining and so interesting. And each one of them is exactly the same thing. So the reason I mention it is I did a TikTok the other day that got 310 hours of watch time, right? It's over 90,000 views. And so telling your stories on Reels, if you can get them to about 60 seconds, just quick in and out stories, Linda, could be an amazing, amazing, amazing way for you to conveniently, from the comfort of your own home, reach way more people than any public speech you could possibly give.
Well, maybe your Todd can help me.
We would love to help you in some way, shape, or form, but it's a travesty if you don't get on Reels, Linda. It's a travesty. We gotta do it. We gotta find a way to get you on there because the stories are too good. They're too good. They're too inspiring.
I don't know if I can pare it down to 60 seconds.
Or 3 minutes. They go up to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So anyway,
right.
I'll let that one go for now. So now that the second book is up and cooking, what's the plan to promote this thing? What are you doing?
Speaking engagements, I tend to sell my books more when I'm out there speaking, and so just basically just locally through social media uh, outlets. And I've been very fortunate. I've had some great articles written. I was featured full page a couple of like a month ago, and on all the local television networks. So, I mean, it's not, I'm not, I'm not hungry to sell my books. I think what I am is I have this wealth of knowledge and a real desire, at my age to impart knowledge to people because it's scary right now because, the world is kind of crazy right now. And the largest wealth transfer in human history is happening right now. And the next generation of people, and then the generation after them, they didn't really earn that money, it got passed off to them, and they don't really know how to manage that money. And so I feel like we have to go after that money now while the people who understand what it took to raise money and to build communities will give that money now before it's the next generation, maybe that all they care about is saving the whales. But there's human beings that need help, or someone's going to snort it up their nose and it's gone. So I'm very mature. I'm at that age where I don't have very many years to impart this knowledge. So I don't know how to to share that. Now you've just told me about TikTok that I know nothing about, and so that's the problem. As older generation don't really know how to get the word out there and promote ourselves.
Yeah, well, we're definitely gonna have a conversation backstage about exactly what that looks like. So just really quick, a friend of mine, former client, Gabe Grasso, Esquire, he defended OJ. He's a criminal defense attorney. He just started a series on TikTok. He's about your age, and he has over 10,000 followers. He started 2 weeks ago. Okay, he got 10,000 followers, and a lot of his videos 90,000 views, 100,000 views, and he's just focusing on cybersecurity. He's a criminal defense attorney. Okay, he's not even an expert, and people don't care because he keeps talking about the threat of a cyber attack on the United States. I don't know why Gabriel Grasso is into this. He just is. And he decided to start up a TikTok, and he's crushing it, crushing it. So I think that you could have massive, massive success. The demographic of TikTok, only 19%, I want to say, of the people on the platform are under the age. No, only 25%, excuse me, are under the age of 19. So most people are older than teenage years, and so there's an incredible opportunity. And even if they're younger, they should hear your stories as well. So we will have that conversation. I want to make sure that you have a chance to talk to the folks one more time about your books. If they want to reach you, where should they go? Let them know, Linda Smith.
Yeah, so it's hello at Linda's Life, um, or well, my website, lindaslife.com. My books are available on Amazon. It's Unwanted or Confessions of a Sin City Fundraiser, and on my website, Linda's Life. And again, I would want people to know that when you purchase the book, it all goes to say thank you to caregivers through the Christopher Smith Foundation, named for my beautiful, beautiful son who created a life for me that I would not have had he not been born to me.
Absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. YouTube.com/send it rising. Hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're listening after the fact on either YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, or any of the podcasts that we're currently on. We love you. Thank you so much. If you're inspired by Linda, go to lindaslife.com. You know you want to. And again, if you know anyone looking for an amazing public speaker, look no further than Linda. That's the show for today. Thank you to our guest, Linda Smith, for the fantastic conversation. We'll see y'all next time.